Hi, it's Rupert here from Action Coach in Kinross, and I'm joined today by Chris Peace, formerly now of Peace Recruitment Group. Welcome, Chris.
Thanks for having me on.
So, Chris, you've been you were the founder, face of, leader, and all things to Peace Recruitment for what 15 years.
Correct. Yes.
So, what took you into starting your own business in the first place?
It was the recession. It was 2008, 2009. And I was working for a big organization who were great and taught me lots. At that point, I had no wife, no kids, a small mortgage, overheads low, a couple of savings in the bank. And I sort of looked at the economic climate and a potential move of clients looking for slightly more TLC from their supplier, no matter what industry you're in. It seemed to me that people were moving away from the big corporates and that sort of juggernauts or the big tankers that were going out there. And people seemed they wanted to be working more with smaller people where they can add value and prioritize relationships and things. And so I I realized I wasn't going to earn as much money. I'd lost a little bit of belief in the corporate beast, and the circumstances and opportunity and risk sort of all entwined with just the conditions in the market. And I thought, well, if I didn't scratch this itch now, I never would. But to say it was like a big plan, I felt entrepreneurial and salesy and stuff, but it was almost like, well, now would be the time to do it because it feels like everything's going to go pretty rubbish for a few years. And so I'd rather have a lifestyle business where I can take everything home that I build. Because if I'm going to build significantly less with a big company, my commissions weren't going to be there. So yeah, it was instinct, probably with a little bit of risk, and I put a tiny sprinkling of planning that led me to set up as a sole trader initially.
So you started off as a sole trader. You've set out to put a bit more care and attention into recruitment than maybe some of the bigger corporate players were doing.
Yeah.
You also specialized. When did the specialization come in?
Well, always. I mean, even with the organization I worked with before, we always specialized in certain sort of. It was always inch wide, mile deep. So I was a specialist in quantity surveying, project management, building surveying, real estate, and things, which I really enjoyed because that demographic and the people you're dealing with they were nice to deal with and good kind of relationship builders themselves, but smart, and but also they earned enough money, so I got a higher percentage of whatever they were earning and stuff. So the salaries were good as well, and so I just continued on basically from what I originally knew. There was a slight period of restrictive covenants that I needed to respect, and I did. So I kind of dabbled in a bit of architecture and health and safety and mechanical, electrical, and civil design engineering and things like that. And then I kind of went back to my bread and butter. But initially, just as a sole trader, I just went all in on the built environment, as it's referred to. But people would call it construction and property to the layman's. Yeah.
And what was it that you did that made you attractive to clients?
Do you know, I probably filled up my cookie jar, as I've sort of coined this phrase. Like I used to say to people when they start in the business, I give them an empty jar, and the more they work, the cookies can go in. Some people eat a cookie every time one goes in. Some people fill up their cookie jar and then want promoted or want more money and all these sorts of things. I'd built up years and years of a reputation, I think, of doing a good job, and my name stuck out, which is why at the time I decided to go with Peace Recruitment. Although people now don't even realize it's Chris Peace, the business, they just think it's Peace Recruitment. I think funny name for a recruitment business, and people don't even realize that that's where it's come from. But people knew the name because it's a very rare surname, unless you're in York or the Highlands. And so yeah, I think to be honest, just a proven track record, and people knew that I cared and that I had a good network of individuals. But this was way before people were really in on LinkedIn. So your network never ever left. We didn't stay with you. It's not like you had a pre-prepared database of people to make money from. It was very different. It was all job boards and things there, and proper headhunting and phoning people at their desk when people used to have a desk that wasn't on their kitchen table. So it was different. Even 15 years ago, a lot's changed, but reputation, I think, and people like doing business with people that they like. And I'd like to think, I delivered for them, and people liked working with me. But I guess you would need to ask the clients. But that rang true over 15 years as the clients stayed with us, as we even when we grew to one of Scotland's biggest independent recruiters. Those ethics and morals and values that I tried to install at those early days and had even when I worked with the bigger company are still in that business today. And that's probably why they've gone from strength to strength and will continue to do so, I'm hoping.
So you started off, you were looking for a lifestyle business to see you through uh, the recession,
Yeah.
and 15 years on, you've just exited the business,
Yeah.
with it going from strength to strength. So, at what point in your journey did you start thinking about exit?
Good question. And that's probably it is the $1 million question. And it's the moment, it's almost like pre this moment and post this moment. And so there was probably about 6 or 7 years where I just made it up as I went along. And I'd like to think my instincts were good and I always worked hard and I cared and I built a good team around me. And those initial hires were really, really important. And so I hired amazing people that I used to work with and people that I'd interviewed and things. But I got to about 6 or 7 years in and I realized that the foundations of the business that I'd built that was already winning awards and doing multi-million pounds worth of turnover, but the foundations were built on sand to a certain extent. I'm maybe doing myself a little bit of a disservice, but there's no standard processes. We hadn't looked at our assets. We had no marketing plan. We didn't really have a business plan. We just got on the phone and made money. And then I was introduced to an amazing woman by the name of Kai Murray, who at the time was a coach and mentor. She'd previously been the managing director of a massive competitor of ours, and she knew recruitment like the back of her hand, and she'd moved into coaching. This is going to seem like we've totally planned this. Like the best moment was when I took on a coach. Now that you're a coach, and you'll come to that, and the punchline is obviously that's now what I'm doing. But genuinely, hand on heart, that was when things changed. And Kai encouraged me to say, like, well, what's your number? When do you want to exit? What does your retirement plan look like? And I was like, I'm 37 years old. And I was like, I'm loving it. I'm having a great time. And I'm in a sort of euphoric phase where I'm getting good dividends and I'm really enjoying it. I'm doing all the stuff I enjoy doing. But then I realized I was at 12, 13, 14, 15 staff, something. And I thought, oh, I need to get real here. Like all of a sudden I'd stuck with, right, I need a maternity policy. One of my team are pregnant. I don't have that. And, what's our processes and how does this work? And so getting a coach, and then she said, well, I said, I'm having fun. Let's not worry about that. She said, let's just play a game then. What number do you think would be good for your retirement? And what age do you want to be in? What kind of house do you want to live in? And where do you want to go on your holidays? What car do you want to drive? If they were the things that were motivating me, which they don't really. Holidays, yes, but other stuff, not so much. And she said, right, well, how are we going to build this? What do we need to do? And we had to knock down the building a little bit to get good, solid foundations. And so we started looking at the processes that good companies have. And then that's when we started thinking, okay. And then it was almost like a sort of vision board and sort of manifesting to a certain extent. Not that I'm too into all that, but you've got to have a destination in your sat nav and head towards it. So that was about 8 years ago that I started first thinking about that, and that completely aligned with me bringing in a coach who helped me stop working in my business and started working on my business, and to remove myself from the need to constantly be top sales or constantly be making sales. And I realized that I could add more value by systemizing things and getting a lot smarter about the way we did it. And that kind of aligned a little bit with marketing and LinkedIn all coming to the fruition, and leadership skills and coaching really coming into the workplace rather than managing and telling people what to do, because you've got a new generation of millennials and Gen Zs and all that coming in wanting to be managed a different way. And I'd like to think that I was quite good in that area. So yeah, it was 8 years ago is the short answer.
No, that's really really good. And you've talked about some of the steps you've taken in terms of seeing what the destination's likely to be, having a bit of an outline of a plan, and putting the effort into creating the systems. You've also talked about one of your key skills early on in terms of getting the right people in. You're obviously a recruitment expert. So how do you find the right people for your business?
Well, I think a lot of people initially will go to people that they know, people that they've worked with. And that's why it's built into a lot of people's contracts that if you hand your notice in, you're not meant to go tapping up your old colleagues. But it's not, these restrictive covenants are not really worth the paper they're written on, because they're going to restrict free movement and, you know, conversations taking place. So as long as you're smart about it. So initially you hire people that you trust, that you know you can work with, and people that you can have fun with. Where it got really difficult was once I'd looked at all the people that I wanted to take on board and people that were willing to join the train, we had to then start going out to the wider market. And ultimately, there's recruiters out there who recruit recruiters. So, you know, you can go, you build up a network. So my network was all surveyors and project managers, and those companies came to me because that's who I spoke to. I would speak to recruiters who all day spent time speaking to recruiters. You take time to tell them your story and control the narrative for you, and then they go out to market, and then you give them their 15 or 18% or whatever of the salary to bring in good people. And that works well sometimes, and sometimes it doesn't. But to be honest with you, I actually find it easier recruiting for my clients than I did for myself, because you're kind of blinkered. And I think as well, as an entrepreneur or as any business owner, there's something innate, I think, to go and get people like you and just hire people that are the same as you. And I can assure you, you certainly don't want an office full of crisp pieces, because that's not going to be much fun. And as you know, you just need to add in different. And so I was reading the right books and speaking to the right people, and yeah, trying to hire the right people. But I got it wrong a lot with my own hires. There's a statistic that in recruitment, it's 40 to 45% turnover of staff every year in recruitment, because it's very poor leadership. It's often good salespeople that then go up to leadership roles, and they've not got the same soft skills in order to become a leader and pass on the knowledge to actually uplift and empower the people underneath them. And so actually good business owners often find it difficult to recruit people, or they'll take people on just like them. And that often doesn't add well. So reading the right books and having the right support and infrastructure around me, and a little bit of awareness, but there's a lot of luck involved as well in hiring the right people, because sometimes it just doesn't gel. But you know, I got lucky, and for me, it was always about transparency and honesty right from the very start. I would never sell people like, this is what we're like and this is what this is like, to just get them in the door, and then they come in and it's not what they said it was going to be. So I was always much, they interviewed me, and I always let them have a right good look under the bonnet. There was a key question that I always talked about in interviewing candidates, and it was, what's shit about us? So I always used to just let them know, you know, where the dead bodies were, or I would hang our dirty washing out in the interview straight away, which I think probably came across as quite endearing. And for the people that I was hiring, they wanted that level of honesty. And I would say, you know what's rubbish about us? You're really close to decision making. So if we're not making money, you know, the cat gets kicked. You know, you're not miles away from the decision makers, but that's also a good thing. What else is rubbish? We've not got the same budget that some of the big companies have. We're not as disciplined in the way we train. It's more on the job and accountability and learn as you go. And so I would let people know what was shit about us in the interview. And so people came in with their eyes wide open, or they knew to say no if that wasn't what they were looking for. And so, yeah, I think that was quite important, but that was just because I wanted to be really honest with people. But recruitment's always a challenge, and I got it wrong as often as I got it right.
No, I mean, you're absolutely right. It's helping people deselect themselves. It's, if you're going for the long term team member, then there's nothing to be gained from anything other than helping them to see what it's really going to be like.
Yeah, and you don't want to panic hire either. And we said if it wasn't a hell yes, it was a no. You know yourself, when you look at the menu and you're deciding where you're going to go with your wife or whatever for dinner, and you say, well, this place looks nice, and you look at the menu and you're kind of not quite sure, but you go in anyway, and you're always disappointed, or it's not quite. You're like, you know what? I knew it wasn't a hell yes before I walked into that restaurant. Or you look at it and you go, oh yeah, they've got this amazing, or they've got this, they've got an amazing risotto, the steak sounds good. Yeah, I can pick 6 things off that, and the ambiance looks great, and you go in and you have a great night, because it's been a hell yes from minute one. And there's an instinct there when you're hiring. If you're meeting somebody and it's like vibing and it's there, and you're asking the right questions and you check their capability and it's a hell yes, then go in and get them, secure them, whatever it takes. So there's definitely an instinct in there as well. But if it's not a hell yes, it's a no. And that goes for restaurant choices and hiring staff, I would say.
Fantastic. So when you think back over those, well, 15 years of running, building, and then exiting from your own business, but actually your career, what's the piece of advice that you'd give yourself starting out all over again?
The advice that I would give myself. Okay. Do you know what? I'm really happy with the outcome. I wouldn't change anything. There was lots of ups and downs in the business. We had good days and bad days, and I certainly made mistakes. And if I could go back, there would be a million things I would probably change. But it's all led to the outcome that I planned and foreseen. So I think it would be amiss of me to sit here and think about what I would want to change, because in business that's all worked out really, really, really well, and I'm happy and I should be grateful for that rather than worrying about something that I did or didn't do. Personally, there was a time in the business where I needed to go all in, and I went all in, and at the sacrifice of a little bit of my health and my marriage. So I got my priorities potentially mixed up there. Um, and so that was probably a mistake I made, was going too far in, and it cost me my relationship. So not getting too deep about it, but sometimes you can prioritize stuff, but you need to just screw the nut. Well, that sun's fairly piling through the window now. So yeah, it's priority management and making sure. So I suppose that sort of business, making sure you've not got all your boxes open at one time. Make sure you've got your family box and your friend box and your business box. And at one point, we were so busy and everything was going, and I knew that it was onto something. I just had all the boxes open, and I was trying to be an amazing husband, failing, trying to be a good dad, C plus, and I decided to prioritize on business, and I probably got a B or an A in business. But at what cost, and what could I have done to probably change that situation so I got straight B's and everything rather than that? And so managing that, but you know what? It is what it is, and it's all worked out personally and from a business perspective now as well. So all's well that ends well.
Absolutely. What is it you do now to make sure you don't go round the same loop again?
Um, I've surrounded myself with good individuals. I think I've just got older as well. I think you just sometimes you learn from your mistakes, and you know, youth is wasted on the young. You know, they're all going to make the same mistakes that I've made and somebody else has made, and some people will be a little bit more mature than I've been. But I try to take things a little bit slower, consider things, care, listen. I think I was also often I was so busy talking or waiting for my opportunity to talk that I forgot that I had two ears and one mouth, and I wasn't listening to my wife, wasn't maybe listening to my staff, and I was just trying to force my way through this wall. And so I tried to be a little bit more relaxed about it. So I still sweat the small stuff because the small stuff builds up to achieving the big stuff. I try to prioritize where I'm spending my time a little bit more and pick my battles as well. And I look after my fitness a lot more as well. So I've got three pillars, and that's fitness, and it is in this order: fitness, business, and funness. I know funness isn't a word, but I've made that one up. And I think if I'm fit and look after myself, I can look after my business. If my business is going well, I can look after my team. They'll look after me. They'll look after the clients. And if the business is going well, I've got lots of money or time available for funness, which is holidays and swimming with the kids and going out on a bike and going to the gym and going to shows or whatever your cup of tea is. And so I try to make sure that I spend enough time. Sometimes you might have the business box up a bit more than the fitness one, but it's managing those boxes.
So you've exited Peace Recruitment. What's next?
I'm still a shareholder, so I'm still on the board, and I'll be because it's a VIMBO that I did, which is a vendor initiated management buyout. There was a chunk of cash paid, and then they're going to pay me out over a period of years out of future profits from the business, because getting money these days is different. So I'm still on the hook. So I'm certainly not moving to the Bahamas, or I'm not going to have so much liquid cash available to become an angel investor or start dabbling in property development. Unfortunately, that's not the kind of numbers we're talking about here. So let's be realistic. And so the exit, it was not like this, oh, we've won the lottery euphoric moment. It's a change of pace for me. It was the right time to hand over to the new owners of the business and for them to steer the ship the way they want to do it. But for me, I wanted to do something that where I could add value, pass on some knowledge, and help. And so I'm becoming a coach. So the company that Kai, who I mentioned earlier, who originally worked for, was a company called Sherlaws. I've been trained. I know their IP from the other side of the desk. So I've now moved to their side of the desk. And my idea is to try and help SMEs or CEOs of organizations. And it doesn't have to be construction or doesn't have to be anything. I mean, my first clients that I've signed up is a sort of property company and a specialist sort of subcontractor for Transport for London. So I'll be coaching and using the IP that Sherlaws have taught me to help me achieve my goals. I'm going to pass that on. But I think I'm in quite a unique position there where not only do I understand the intellectual property and the systems they use, I've gone through the system myself and seen it work, where a lot of people can coach it and they'll ask the right questions. And some of them have done amazing exits and run loads of businesses, and that's fine. But I'd like to think that I'm quite hot off the press in that regard. And so I'm able to sort of say, this is how I felt. Let's do this. Let's just do this together. This is what I took from it, rather than it be completely theoretical sort of learning. So that's the plan. But yeah, I'm not looking to fill my book up. I want 8 clients a month because I want to spend time with my mum and dad who aren't getting any younger. And I want to enjoy my kids who are 11 and 9 before they start completely divorcing me for the Xbox and out with their friends to the cinema or whatever, because I think that's in the post. So the next 3 years, I think, are quite pivotal for quality time with my young children and my parents. And so the idea is that I'm going to have that funness box open for a bit and the fitness box, and I'll have the business box open for 8 or 10 clients that I want to work with that are going to really implement and put in play what we agree together is the best course of action. Because non-implementation or not having the drive to follow through on the plans is my biggest frustration in business, is that people talk a lot but they don't actually do it. So I'm only wanting to work with people who want to actually do it and are willing to be held properly accountable to achieve it. So that's what my goal is.
Fantastic. Well, I really appreciate you being with us today, sharing your lessons from business. I wish you every success in the new venture. And yeah, helping people do the things they need to do. That accountability. It's fun and unbelievably important. So, Chris, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me on board. Thank you. Cheers.